We do thank you so much for being a part of Issues at Hand. My name is Nowamani. You are welcome to today's show. Thank you for being a part of Good Morning Family as well as Church of Uganda Family TV. I hope that you are having a great morning and of course that you and your loved ones are doing well. We are sponsored by Protea Hotel by Marriott. Comfort and luxury at its best. They are located along Entebbe Highway. When you go to Entebbe, they are the hotel to visit. They have all the facilities that you might need. But today I want to get to our topic straight away without even giving any background, because we are talking corruption. We are discussing an issue that has been for years a problem to this country, but to Africa as a whole. And our leaders have tried very, very much to fight corruption. And of course, we are seeing solutions coming up and impacting positively the problem of corruption. We still have a number of challenges here and there, and these are what we are going to look at today and see how to combat them and how to make sure that we have a free Uganda corruption-free, a corruption-free Uganda, if I may term it that way. Today I have a very special guest in studio. She is the Deputy Inspector General of Government, and her name is Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria. She's going to tell us a lot about corruption, so sit tight and let's learn a thing or two. You are very welcome to studio, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Carol. I'm proudly associated to Family TV because what you present out there is content that is trusted.
Oh, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate that. To start with, let's start with the easy basics. What would you term as corruption?
Corruption can be better described by its characteristics and how it presents itself. But it is that intention somebody has to defraud the country, to defraud an individual, to defraud the citizen of what is rightfully supposed to be meant for them, for their personal use or personal gain. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So we had the African Union adopting the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption in Maputo, Mozambique on 11th July, which was yesterday. But also this specific project was started out in 2006 and of course conforming to the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption in the African Union is designated in very many countries of Africa, and Uganda happens to be one of them. Yesterday, the IGG, Honorable Betty Kamya, spoke to the country as regards to corruption, and she mentioned that over 10 trillion shillings is lost per year in Uganda alone because of corruption. I would like to maybe understand, how does this 10 trillion come about? It is a big figure.
Thank you very much. But before we go to that 10 trillion, as we commemorate the day for the African Anti-Corruption Day, the theme of that day is basically a call to action, reflecting on the achievements and prospects. So many years have passed now, but the particular theme is looking at accelerating the fight against corruption. Now, you rightly talk about the 10 trillion. The Inspectorate of Government conducted a study, and in that study, it revealed that we lose approximately 9.3 trillion annually on corruption, both overt and covert, corruption that can be seen and that cannot be seen. So that is what we lose annually. And when you look at what we lose, it arises from what government pays to people who are not doing their work, people who are absconding from duty or absent from duty for some reason or another, but they expect a pay. So government continuously pays those people. Then we have situations where people, just for some reason, want to defraud government. They are responsible for certain budgets. They are responsible for certain activities which are supposed to be implemented. And then when this money is released in that quarter, the person decides to take it for his own good. So it's about irresponsibility on part of the employees of government. So if we can inculcate values in people, I think that kind of situation can change. But at the moment, our country is doing fairly well, especially when you look at the highlights of what we are doing as an institution which is the lead in the fight against corruption in the country, together with other partner agencies. We are not sleeping. we are doing a very, very good job, but it is now the Ugandans to appreciate their responsibilities as well, because when I was a scholar of human rights, we learned that human rights go hand in hand with responsibilities. Now, corruption has implications on human rights, and it is important for citizens out there to know that they have a big role to play in the fight against corruption. That is why in our constitution, the 1995 constitution, under Article 17, the duties and responsibilities of the citizen are clearly well spelled out, and one of those is contributing to the fight against corruption. And now we should be talking about how does this ordinary citizen contribute in fighting against corruption. Our strategy is preventive and want to take the war against corruption to the people. So we are calling upon Ugandans and citizens to join this war by naming, by shaming, by reporting cases of corruption to ask for action. Yes, and citizens play a very significant role. Why? Because they are the actual victims of corruption. They are the true victims of corruption. That is why when they go to hospital and they don't find drugs, it is them who suffer. That's why when they go to school and the teachers are not there to teach, it is them who are at a loss. And that's why we say, I think this war against corruption is a citizens' war, and the citizens need to own this war so that we deal with the vice together. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. You've talked about the strategies for the Inspectorate of Government to curb corruption, and some of them for this year are to enhance prevention, detection and elimination of corruption, to strengthen enforcement of the Leadership Code Act, and to promote adherence to the rule of law. How far with these objectives as a directorate?
Now, we have a broad mandate as the Inspectorate of Government, and one of what the things we do is basically leading the fight against corruption and unpacking our mandate, and is unpacked through the different directorates in the Inspectorate of Government. We have got the Directorate of Anti-Corruption, which is the lead directorate in investigating cases of corruption. And we have got 16 regional offices in the country, and each of those offices basically carries out that responsibility of receiving cases of and investigating cases against corruption. And then we also do, like you rightly said, our strategy is preventive, but we also do enforcement. We investigate, we prosecute those cases of corruption. Now, as the Inspectorate, other than the Directorate for Anti-Corruption, we have got the Directorate of Leadership Code. You know, within the law, Carol, the law sets a minimum standard of behavior of leaders, and that is unpacked in the Leadership Code Act. So there are leaders who normally do not behave like leaders should behave, as in they do commit those offenses, corruption-related offenses, they abuse their positions as leaders, they do not declare when it's the right time for declaring their assets, liabilities, and so on. So those are handled by the Directorate of Leadership Code. We investigate those cases, prepare them for prosecution, and they're taken to the Leadership Code Act. Then we have a Directorate for Legal Affairs. The Directorate of Legal Affairs basically deals with asset recovery, deals with litigation, deals with prosecution, and gives legal advice to the Inspectorate of Government. So they are the gurus in legal-related issues. And then we have a Directorate of Projects. There are so many government projects out there which require continuous supervision, continuous monitoring to ensure that the projects are basically measuring up to the expectations. And we work with the community monitoring groups. The community monitoring groups are like our eyes at the grassroots. They go and see what is happening with those projects. Where there is a red flag, then they report those matters to us for action. Then we have a Directorate for Ombudsman. Now, Ombudsman is a soft eye of the Inspectorate of Government. We basically do mediations. There are cases that come about mistreatment at work, discrimination, and so on. So the Ombudsman resolves issues by mediation, creating harmony, and also sharing policies, engaging with the employers, ministries, departments, and agencies to discuss issues relating to policy and the welfare and well-being of staff. So we have those directorates, and then we have got units, like the unit of inspection, investigations, internal inspections within the IG. We have got finance and administration and so many other units that do basically conduct specific responsibilities in line with implementing our mandate in the Inspectorate of Government. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. You talked about investigation and prosecution, and I'd like to understand how are the investigations carried out, and then what is the process of prosecution then?
So when we receive a complaint, not a human rights, why is my mind focused on human rights anyway? When we receive an anti-corruption complaint within the Inspectorate of Government, we first of all subject that complaint to the compliance test. The person they're complaining against, is this person a public officer or a leader? Did he declare? What he declared, is it commensurate to his well-known sources of income, and so on? That is the first thing we do. Then we go ahead and begin investigating this case. We send it to the Directorate of Anti-Corruption. The case is given a number, registered on the system. We investigate, and through the investigation, sometimes it requires that we call this person to the office to respond to our summons, and then we take statements, and then we get documentary evidence and so on, and then we then prepare this file for prosecution. And in preparation of the file for prosecution, at that point sometimes we may have to arrest the person depending on the gravity of the evidence we have gotten. When we arrest the person, then this matter is taken to the anti-corruption court, and then the case is ready for prosecution.
You can arrest any rank? Any person at any rank?
Any person at any rank, because the law gives us the mandate, and that is why you see we go ahead and arrest. But we arrest when we are satisfied that this person actually was involved in this criminal act of corruption. So we then go ahead and arrest, and the person is taken to the anti-corruption court, and then the court proceeds with the matter. But at any stage, the person may admit guilt. When the person admits guilt, then we do the out of court. If he admits and is willing to do out of court, we do the out of court settlement, and the person could admit and say, well, it is true, I caused financial loss to government to the tune of 200 million, and I'm willing to pay back. So we then go through that negotiation and agree that, well, you can pay back, but now that you have paid back and admitted, that means you're not fit to hold this office. So in the agreement, we agree that the person either has to resign, because at that point we have already ordered for the interdiction of the person. So that means the person has to resign from service. But it is a case by case. There are cases where we can caution. You pay back, we caution you, and you go back to work. But if we see the gravity of the offense you have committed does not make you fit to hold that position anymore, then we advise that you either go for early retirement, or you resign, or we just cause a dismissal because of the nature of the offense you have committed. Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm coming back to the African Union Convention and if its impact has been felt, but a little bit about what you've been telling us. What are the causes of corruption, the main cases of corruption that you deal with?
Well, are we going to look at the causes or cases? Offenses of corruption.
Can we first look at the causes and then we get to the cases?
Well, when you look at corruption, corruption per se is like an amoeba. It changes forms and shapes. That's why when we were drafting the Anti-Corruption Act of 2009, we had to bring out all the known offenses of corruption. Previously, the country had a Prevention of Corruption Act of the 70s, which looked at corruption from the perspective of bribery. But today, corruption manifests itself in different forms. Yes. It can be in form of illicit enrichment, it can be in form of abuse of office, it can be in form of bribery, it can be in form of money laundering, and so on and so forth. So corruption manifests itself in different forms, just like an amoeba presents in different shapes. But now we have to deal with cause by cause. If it is a bribe someone has taken, then what is the ingredients? What are the ingredients of proving that this is a bribe? Did he solicit for it? And bribery involves two. The person who gives and the recipient as well.
The recipient is also
culpable, yes.
Oh.
Yes, and they are liable You know, you give, the person who gives and the recipient. So the two are culpable. Although in most cases, the people who bring those cases of bribery normally have a hand in it as well. When it is a deal that has gone sour, then they want to turn around and report. Just like many other cases of corruption. Someone turns around to be a whistleblower because he was part of the deal and he did not benefit from it. But we encourage people to have integrity, to walk the talk, so that they do not get caught in such. Because in the process of investigations, then you actually get to discover that this person was party to this criminal activity. So corruption manifests itself in different forms and shapes. But what are the drivers of corruption? People have argued that it is poverty. For me, today, because now I work with the Inspectorate of Government, I know that it is not poverty.
Personally, I believe
it is beyond poverty, because I see even the people who are too rich still involved in offenses or crimes relating to corruption. So corruption, for me, I think it's a mindset thing. It happens out of somebody's selfishness, out of greed, out of that perception. But if we deal with issues to do with mindset change, and people begin to be honest, people begin to have integrity, people begin to inculcate in themselves those values and principles and have a heart for their country and they're patriotic, then I think it's a challenge we can get to easily deal with. That is why I've started a program of unpacking values, especially with the young people, because I know it has got very good implications, especially in the fight against corruption, because it all starts from our values. What foundations do we have? How was this child raised up?
Yes.
Is it a child who has been stealing a pencil from school and now is stealing billions of shillings while he's occupying a position of responsibility? So we have so many drivers of corruption. Of course, people who talk about poverty also argue in that direction and say poverty is one of the drivers. But me, I want to think it is attitudinal. We need to deal with attitudinal issues, and that is the attitude which causes a human being to be greedy and selfish and want lots of things for himself. Even things which are meant for the common good of all, he'll want to concentrate on taking as much for himself. So I think we need to tackle it from that perspective. So if we are able to deal with foundational issues, then we bring in the values, and then people will begin to appreciate that in order to live in harmony, we have to have integrity, we have to be accountable, we have to be honest, we have to be truthful, and it all starts from foundation, from home.
So how are you going to implement that initiative of yours? It's a very beautiful initiative, and you've said you want to start with the young people. And I'm only wondering how. Of course, we want to support that because it's a very good thing as the media and the fourth estate. But how are you going to carry it out? What is your plan?
As the Inspectorate of Government, we actually have started that. We are doing it. We have a program on UBC called Your Space, where we are working with young people and unpacking those values. But in the process of unpacking the values, we need to go down to the grassroots as well. And we are doing that because through our different programs in the regional offices, we have got the mandate of the inspectorate being implemented. So we have our regional inspectorate officers. Much as we are doing enforcement, we are also doing preventive. And in preventive, we are educating the people. We're empowering the people, first of all, to know what corruption is, to know the dangers of corruption, and to be able to demand for accountability, because we are promoting transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption. So we want to empower the citizens out there to, first of all, own the war against corruption and be able to demand for accountability from an informed perspective. So if we equip the citizens with these tools, and they know what corruption is, how it manifests itself, what is their role in the fight against corruption. Because before we go for war, Carol, you have to know who the enemy is.
Yes.
You scope the enemy before you launch into an attack. So if we are able to give corruption a face and empower the people to be able to identify what amounts to corruption, then the people will be able to join the war against corruption and actually participate in it. But we have to walk the talk, because I cannot talk about corruption when me myself am what? Corrupt. So we have to be exemplary and walk the talk and be able to show people that this is how we must live our lives. This is how we must be truthful. This is how we must be honest. And if we are going to participate ably in this war, then we have to come with these tools, with these skills, with these abilities, with these energies. And then the perception will change. Yes, because if the people own the war against corruption, then even their perception of corruption will change. That's why I began by saying, as the Inspectorate of Government and as Uganda, I think we are work in progress, but we are doing pretty well. Pretty well because, one, we have institutions, we have robust policy and legal framework, and the institutions have the mandate and ready to do the work.
Okay.
Yes.
So when we talk about the role of the citizens, because even Honorable Betty Kamya mentioned it a lot, and she said the Inspectorate of Government is committing to mobilizing the citizens to join the fight against corruption. She said the IG is enhancing public awareness, like you've mentioned, about the cost and the pain that corruption causes.
Yes.
I can only wonder how a citizen like myself or another person walking out there can join this cause, can help out. Is there a number to call? How do they help in fighting corruption? Should they run and report? And another thing is that people always say that the people who hold office and are corrupt are from maybe a connected tribe. I don't want to use the word tribe, but and they're saying that the people who are actually well behaved and good mannered are left out because they have no connections to get these jobs of government and stuff like that. So maybe let's begin from the role of the citizens, then we shall get to...
I think we have to begin with that connection.
Hey, okay.
Carol, you see me here. I am not in that connection thing. I probably would say I'm connected to God, because then I would ask myself, how did I end up in this office? Because who knows my name? It is God who knows my name, and I think it is God who led the appointing authority to identify me. And so it is not about connection. But talking about the people and the war against corruption, in Luganda there is a saying that nanyini mufu yakwata waunya, because the citizen is actually the one who feels the pinch when he goes to hospital and there are no drugs and he loses this patient because someone has stolen these drugs. It is that citizen who feels the pinch against corruption. You saw what happened at the airport when the passengers were being ill-treated, issues of corruption and what. It is the passengers who took the initiative and did those recordings and sent them, and they went viral. And we took it up, had a boardroom session with the management of Civil Aviation Authority, and today there is sanity at the airport. So the citizen actually owns the war against corruption. If there are issues to do with service delivery, they're the beneficiaries of the services. So if roads have been done badly and they're not talking about it, hospitals are not being attended to and they're all quiet. So it is a citizen who should be empowered to come and report these cases to us for action. And most of what we do will depend on the complainants. They volunteer and they are witnesses in court in cases of corruption where they have reported. They accept to be witnesses. And now we are encouraging them through the Whistleblower Protection Act. We want them to get 5% from the proceeds. So if you've reported a 10 billion case, then you're expected to get 5% from that 10 billion if we have been able to recover that money. Okay. So that is the reason why we say the citizens must own the war against corruption. If you look at the projects in the countryside, those projects are being done for the good of the citizens. So if they are badly done, like last week I did some arrests in Hoima. I sanctioned arrests where the contractor was busy mixing soil and cement in the construction. How long would such a building last? Those are buildings which crumple down immediately. Who informed me about that? The citizens. They call and say, well, there is a problem here. Why is the contractor doing ABCD on this particular site and so on? So I think we need to empower the citizens more, because as the inspectorate, we can't get to know everything that is happening on the countryside. And that is the reason why we take our presence to the countryside, so that the people get to see the Inspectorate of Government on ground in contact with the citizens. That is why sometimes you find me going to mediate as an arbiter between a contractor, the district, the community, so that we resolve issues. If they say the contractor has delayed, there we are able to unpack and say, why have you delayed? Were you facilitated to do your work? Go ahead and do your work. I'm giving you 2 weeks to complete this. Return to the site and complete this if you are already paid. So sometimes we have to take that initiative rather than sit back in our offices, in the comfort of our offices. We need to go out and reach out to the citizens because they are the true victims of corruption.
Okay. Later I'll ask you if your ears are on the ground as an inspectorate and how much of information you get, because like that aviation thing, it trended because very many people were sharing it on social media. But I'm looking at a case where nobody has shared and maybe people are being pressed down there in their offices by their leaders and they're not able to reach out to you on time or even reach out to you at all. Do they keep it inside them, or how would you advise such a person to handle?
We advise the people to come to our offices or send a message on WhatsApp or send an email through our regional offices or direct to the headquarters. Yes, then we take action.
Okay.
Yes, but citizens play a very, very significant role, especially in this war, against corruption, because they are the true victims and therefore they must own the war against corruption.
Okay.
Yes.
There are speculations that the punishments that are given after prosecution or after proving that somebody is guilty are not so harsh, and that they should be harsh so that other people see from those examples and then fear to commit crime. Do you think that's...
Carol, as someone who drafted some of these anti-corruption laws, I know the punishments are not, the punishments are actually harsh and would deter. But what is the mindset out there when people get to know that I can have an out-of-court settlement and pay back and continue to hold my job? We are discouraging that. We want people to feel the punishments as harsh, as in you pay back and also vacate office. Pay back what you lost, the financial loss, and vacate office. But like I said earlier on, it's case by case. We deal with that on a case by case basis. But we would like to discourage, heavily discourage corruption out there. And people must not participate because they know the punishments are light. Corruption is like a cancer to this country, just like we saw COVID. It has got ability to squeeze life out of the nation, just like you saw that 10 trillion. Do you know what 10 trillion can do to this country if it is plowed back and invested? That is why we say, well, let's have a preventive approach and encourage recovery. If we can recover that money and it's plowed back into the consolidated fund, then we are hopeful that it can be put to good use for other government projects and priorities. Yes. Okay. And that is why we encourage the government to continue supporting the anti-corruption agencies, because in their different dockets, they're doing a lot in fighting corruption. And I think you can see from the cases coming up, some people have said there is duplication of roles, but we encourage complementarity. That's why we have got the interagency forum of anti-corruption agencies, where we work together with CID, with DPP, with Directorate for Ethics and Integrity, with State House Anti-Corruption Unit, and all these other agencies, because each of them contributes positively in the fight against corruption. Just like you see a body, the nose plays a significant role, the mouth does something, the eye is doing something, the ear. Each of them contribute to the well-being of the human being. So if we are to talk about national development, then all these agencies need to be facilitated to be able to work properly and do a good job, especially in rallying the citizens in the fight against corruption. Some of them are doing awareness creation. Others are into quick detection and quick fixing. Others are doing investigations. Others, everybody is contributing and playing a significant role, yes, in the fight against corruption.
Okay, maybe before we go for a short break, I can briefly ask you about the African Anti-Corruption Day that happened yesterday. Do you think that the African Union has done a great job when it comes to contribution on the fight against corruption?
Well, the African Union has done a good job because, one, when you look at the Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, the Maputo Protocol, well, the Maputo Protocol unpacks lots of things the African countries can do in the fight against corruption. So it leaves it to the African nations to go ahead and domesticate. So for us as a country, we signed and ratified this African Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption already, and we have gone ahead to domesticate it because we have unpacked what is in the convention into our Anti-Corruption Act, and we have got measures in place to prevent corruption, and we have begun already implementing. So for me, I think the African Union has done a very good job in coming up with, first of all, this protocol, and now following the theme of the African Anti-Corruption Day, we're supposed to be counting the achievements and prospects, where we have come from, have we improved? If we have got provisions within the law, are we able to implement? Are we able to enforce? And then how far have we gone? Do we have cases we have prosecuted? Can we count back in terms of measuring progress from the time we have ratified that protocol, from the time we domesticated it up to the time we're implementing it as a nation? So it's a time for us to sit and count on and say, well, we have been able to achieve this. And as an inspectorate of government, for us, we are looking at the new innovative ways in fighting corruption. That is why you hear terminologies like the lifestyle audit. That's why I was telling you, each time we receive a complaint, we subject it to the compliance test. Did this person they're complaining against declare his assets? Is he truthful as a leader? What he has as his, are they commensurate to his well-known sources of income? So we have got the lifestyle audit we do, which is an investigative approach. We check on a leader's lifestyle over time and be able to see and test whether this leader is offering true leadership, or his also his leadership abilities are questionable. Other than the lifestyle audit, we have introduced the anti-corruption brigade. The anti-corruption brigades are ad hoc teams we send to the countryside to be able to follow on corruption-related issues within local government. Within there, we do barazas. We get to hear complaints from the people who have not benefited well from service delivery, and we give the district technocrats an opportunity to respond. If there is a red flag, we go ahead and actually take up those cases for investigations. Sometimes within the baraza, we order arrests where someone has not been able to explain himself. The ordinary person is saying, Kao, you have done ABCD. I came to your office, they told me before you can help me, I needed to pay this much, and I paid in. Kao, explain. Is it true that you did this? So we do those initiatives. Then now what I was talking about, unpacking the values, because we're supposed to be disseminating information to do with values and constitutionalism. So we have decided to unpack the values. As a country, Uganda, we have got the national values since 2013, but they had been kept on the shelf. And those values talk about truthfulness, respect for humanity and environment, accountability, social responsibility, honesty, patriotism, fairness and justice, hard work. We're encouraging people to work hard, because some of us, if we're not hard workers, we wouldn't have gotten to where we are. So when you work hard and encourage others to join you and work, then you are able to enjoy the fruits of your hard work. So we have got those different initiatives we have come up with as the Inspectorate of Government, because we know that the new innovative ways in dealing with corruption moves us away from the monotony of work, and it also is insightful, especially to our technical people. If we can come up with new ways, then it is better for someone to exploit a new method of investigation, a new approach to issues. That is why in our strategy we say it is preventive. We want to empower the citizen, and yet we are still doing the enforcement. We are still arresting, investigating and prosecuting. So we think that when we add new innovative ways, then we are adding value in the fight against corruption, and it is going to be more impactful, because with the citizens' empowerment, then we shall be able to change the perception of people out there about corruption, and people will begin to think, rather than lamenting that corruption is eating us, twagala government etuyambe, people will start thinking, what can I do to contribute to the fight against corruption? What is my responsibility as Patricia in this war against corruption? Yes, so it will bring out that responsibility on the part of citizens, rather than sit back and lament. In case there are shortfalls, they will be able to come out and name and shame.
Thank you so much. We are still with Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria, and we are discussing corruption and how we can have corruption-free Uganda at the end of the day. And you have heard it, that the Inspectorate of Government is doing all it takes and putting all these measures, enforcing the law, and doing all those things to make sure that corruption comes to an end. There are still a number of issues. We have people tampering with the PDM money. We also want to understand why exactly does somebody have to declare their assets, and also what can the role of the media be in all this? But this will come after a very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're still watching Issues at Hand with me, Nowamani, and we are still here with Dr. Patricia, the Deputy Inspector General of Government, and we are discussing issues, corruption, and making sure that we find solutions to look forward to corruption-free Uganda, corruption-free Africa, and probably a corruption-free world. I'd like to start with a question from one of our brothers or sisters from CASITA, the trading association, who says that corruption is within government agencies, in their opinion, and how do we encourage government staff to do their work professionally? We've covered a bit of that, but I think you can maybe...
Thank you very much, Carol, for that question from the CASITA. When someone says corruption is within government, it is true. With the experience I've had now in the Inspectorate of Government, our new leadership, we are making 2 years very soon. But you realize that corruption in local government is like a racket, where people internally agree. Sometimes they even have turns. It is my turn to benefit from such and such a project, from such and such a project. So it is indeed true, corruption is in government agencies. How does it happen? They agree. People collude among themselves, sometimes with the human resource. You've heard about selling jobs, the District Service Commission, and they're saying, oh, chairman needs this amount of money for such and such a job, and so on. But slowly by slowly, we're beginning to tackle those issues, because there are people who are paid for jobs in millions, moreover, and they have not gotten those jobs. So they turn around and say, we want our money back. How comes they asked me for this amount of money for this particular job? So when someone says corruption is within government, it is indeed true. There are people who are corrupt in the system. We need to use a kasengeja, a sieve, so that we have people with integrity. How do I work with integrity and prevent corruption? By promoting transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption. If you're a transparent leader, if you're a person of integrity, there is no way you want to dip your hands in monies that are not yours. Money is meant for government programs and projects. How does it happen? Temptation is high. People are having greed, like we've already discussed. How can they be able to discourage that? By purposing within themselves to change and work with integrity and discipline. Because the Bible talks about self-control.
Yes.
And this being family TV, a Christian TV, I will not avoid making reference to the Bible. The Bible says God has given us, a human being, a spirit of self-control. So if you are that person out there and you're greedy and you think that every coin that is given to you to implement government programs must be stolen by you, please have self-control. Be able to work with responsibility, with accountability, with honesty, with truthfulness, with discipline. Today, Carol, it is difficult to find people of integrity out there, because every person who gets a job, the first thing on the agenda is to make himself rich, beyond what his salary or allowances or whatever it is are. And yet when he didn't have a job, he was crying, he says he can work with minimum supervision, he is able to work, he's able to dedicate himself. Given the job, the person begins compromising, you know. So it is a very big challenge, I agree. The people within service, we need to use a sieve to leave people with integrity, and those without integrity get phased out. Because we want leaders who are honest, leaders who will uphold policies like zero tolerance to corruption in their different workspaces. And that is why we say we need to promote strictly transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption in our different workplaces. And they will make our work easy, because now we have a backlog of cases under investigations. We have cases for prosecution. We have been arresting some, and then they humble themselves and begin to appear as if they are the most honest people on earth. Most honest, ready to pay back. Then you ask, but why did you steal?
Did you do it in
the
the
devil.
place?
You see, I don't agree with that argument that the devil. God has given us self-control. If you are allowing to be a container for the devil who is the content, then you are also like the content. When I arrest, I take both the container and its content. So are you the content or you're the container? In the fight against corruption, we need to cut that line very clear so that we know who is causing what, and we be able to contribute for the good of this country. Yes.
For example, some people are asking 200,000 shillings for them to release PDM, Parish Development Model money. So you come we do news at 8 here, and we did this story yesterday, where in some district officials are asking for 200,000 shillings for them to release money, government money, meant for government programs. And I'm wondering, like, how would you handle such a person?
Those are the pieces of evidence I need. Proof that someone has received 200,000 shillings, either on mobile money, or it's written somewhere, he signed for it. Then on the basis of that, or a recording, a phone recording. Then on the basis of that, I can swing into action and cause my investigators to go and pick him. Why is he doing that? The spirit behind the parish development model is to better our people, to improve on the standard of living of the people, to cause the people to do something to generate money for themselves, for their own well-being. Then if an individual is stealing people's money that way. When PDM first came, people thought it was a cash bonanza. People were shocked to see this money on the district account, and they began, then we hear forgeries, you know, fake circles that are non-existent, and some few people are taking. We're investigating all that. So Carol, that program of yesterday, if you have contacts about that, I would gladly take it on and give my investigators in the countryside, so that as an inspectorate of government, we are able to have impact in that area, because we want PDM to achieve the planned purpose it was meant for. And for your own information, the inspectorate of government is in the governance structure of the PDM, together with the Ministry of Local Government. So we need to do something together for the good of this country to ensure that that project really meets its objectives. Yes.
That is great. Maybe let's get to how people get their hands on government money, because I believe if government money is released, even if it's put on an account, it has maybe 3 or more signatories. I would imagine, because I don't know, but I would imagine it has maybe 3 or 4 signatories looking or overlooking that money. And I'm trying to remember a case of maybe Zinda and the late Obe, who allegedly embezzled money. How did they get their hands on the government money?
Carol, human beings are very complicated social animals.
True.
They use different tricks and approaches. There was a case I was investigating, details of which I will not give you because it will jeopardize the investigation, of how people planned with the paymaster to pay money on different accounts, and then they would call the owners of the accounts and say, well, this was an error. Please withdraw this money and bring it. And the people would go and withdraw the money and bring it back and give it. But the other person would then pocket the money and take. So people use different approaches. Sometimes money is sent, they open fictitious account, and that money is paid to those accounts in disguise of payment for some services and so on. Some people register fictitious companies and so on, and say, well, these are pre-qualified, then money goes. Others use, like in the countryside, someone can say, before you can get your pension, I think you first give me this money. So cash changes hands. First give me this 5 million, then I'll be able to give you all your pension. And then a poor man goes and probably gets a loan and gives his thief this money. Then the thief, instead of doing his work professionally, is doing the work with the intention of stealing from the poor pensioners. And that is happening. That is happening. So money finds, these people find money in their hands by using different tricks. People are now buffere, they are tricksters, they use different approaches to steal this money. But that is the reason why, as institutions involved in fighting against corruption, we need to devise new initiatives to be able to tackle the problem. That's why I said, to deal with an enemy, you have to know that enemy better, you have to scope that enemy, and then you apply the strategies to deal with it. That's how this country was successful in dealing with HIV some time back. Even COVID recently, you get to know what the problem is, scope it, and get solutions to rectify that problem. With corruption, if we give it a face, and if we all join hands and deal with it as a holistic approach, then I know this country would go far, would be the best practice in dealing with corruption in Africa and in the world. People would be coming to study how Uganda was able to deal with the problem. That is when, if we understand it, we know what it does, how citizens can be involved, we own the war as a country, and say for us, Uganda is for zero tolerance
of corruption.
Yes.
We have 3 minutes to go. Maybe let's summarize why somebody needs to declare their assets and how that works, just in 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Carol. Declaration of assets, I say the Leadership Code Act has a minimum standard of behavior of leaders, and one of those, what is expected of the leaders from that law is to ensure that they declare after 2 years, public servants, public officials after every 5 years. Now leaders declare their assets because for us in the inspectorate, it's a very useful tool in the fight against corruption. One, the people they are leading are able to trust that leader as a honest leader. If the leader has assets which are commensurate to his well-known sources of income. So that's the reason why they declare their assets, their incomes, their liabilities, so that they can promote that trustworthiness, so that they can be truthful leaders, so that they can be able to work with honesty and integrity, so that as the inspectorate we know that we are actually promoting accountability and anti-corruption among the leaders. Okay. So we look at that as a very significant tool in fighting against corruption, because leaders then have to walk in the light and be able to show what they have as leaders. And for us, we do verifications to ensure that what they have is commensurate. It matches and tallies with what their income, what their allowances, what their sources of monies are.
Okay. Yes. Any last words as we wrap up?
As we wrap up, I would like to call upon the viewers, the listeners, let us own the war against corruption. This war is beyond lamentation. Corruption is like a cancer. If we don't join hands, it will eat up our country, it will eat us up, it will swallow us. So to avoid that, let's own the war against corruption. And together, we will actually be victorious, because we have seen signs of hope in the war against corruption. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria from the Inspectorate of Government. She is the Deputy Inspector General of Government. So it has been issues at hand. Thank you so much for being a part of today's show. Personally, I've learned a lot and my mindset has changed. And I believe as the Fourth Estate, as the media, we are also doing our best in the fight against corruption. We will be here tomorrow, same time, same station. Please stay with us. Good morning and have a good day.